SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
This is Gerard Gibert, and thank you for listening to MidDays here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
MidDays with Gerard Gibert is on the air. MidDays with Gerard Gibert is powered by C-Spire. Power your home or business with C-Spire Fiber. To learn more, visit supertalk.fm/C-Spire. C-Spire Fiber powers SuperTalk Mississippi. Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. You're listening to MidDays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to MidDays, SuperTalk Mississippi. I'm your host, Gerard Gibert, along with Rhino in the Element Wealth Studio, guiding you through the middle of your day with facts, fodder, and fine music. Morning there, Rhino.
Howdy, howdy.
All right, what is happening today? A bunch of stuff going on across these United States and the state of Mississippi. Let's start with a little update on this situation at Delta State from yesterday. What do we got? A student found hanging in a tree. And not a whole lot of details other than that, although, according to officials, foul play has been ruled out at this point, thought to be suicide.
And there have been some sleuths that seem to have uncovered this individual's Facebook. And if that is the same person's Facebook, which there haven't been any new posts to the Facebook, they've had a pretty dark time the last month or so. They've been dealing with some demons, some heartbreak, some heartache, and it seems to have led to them taking their own life.
Very sad to hear, and of course, the coroner involved discussing this, broken bones, etc., and other details, but despite those details, still rules no foul play going on here. Very sad situation, and man, you know, it's something we've talked about on the program. We've talked to experts in this field about it. And it's just sad that someone feels compelled to take their life as a solution to their problems. And we pray for the family and friends of this individual. Delta State University Police Chief Michael Peeler said during a press conference that Reed committed suicide and there was no evidence of foul play. So that's the official statement. Also, I believe there were some activities, big event scheduled, centennial event, that's been rescheduled. Did I get that right?
Yeah, there were, I think, a handful of different events on campus yesterday that were all called off and canceled in light of the events unfolding on campus yesterday, and the latest I heard was that those events will be rescheduled. Okay. I haven't seen an official date for the reschedule, but I have heard that. That,
of course, perfectly appropriate and expected in light of the situation. Man, really sad thing, and you know that is a difficult time for students and everybody involved in the Delta State community, and I believe they've also set up some counseling as well, right?
Yeah, counselors are available on campus if you need it for grief or any other counseling.
Man. Okay, well, what's going on in the news elsewhere? A lot of stuff happening up there in Washington and across the federal government landscape. FBI Director Kash Patel on the Hill being questioned today just over this whole Charlie Kirk situation. I'm not sure exactly what they're looking for. and what necessitated this in their view?
I don't think this was instigated by the Charlie Kirk assassination. I think this has been on the schedule longer than that. It has to do with Kash Patel coming in and cleaning house, and the Democrats in Congress want to flex oversight and claim that he's doing something purely political or partisan, and he's defending himself.
Okay. Well, I thought I saw where there were some plans to
they're going to
fire
include
some questions about him on that,
about
right?
the
Okay.
response to the assassination and the investigation, but that wasn't the purpose of calling the hearing.
I got you. So this was all already in the works. Just the timing is incidental. You're also seeing just a flurry of terminations across the country because of people who have acted really just stupidly, inhumanely, inappropriately. And we talked about this yesterday as a group here at SuperTalk of what might ensue from a legal perspective. Does this infringe on a person's First Amendment rights if they go out and, in this case, celebrate the assassination of a person and taunt and really just go out and post inappropriate, I think, unsuitable comments, and then they find themselves being terminated? You saw the story of the Office Depot employees that refused to print, was it flyers, I think?
It was a poster for a vigil.
That's right, advertising, promoting a vigil.
And they claimed it was against company policy, that it was political propaganda.
But
and the employees involved were swiftly terminated because that is not the company policy. They were putting their personal politics in the way of actually doing business.
And thus they suffered the consequences of termination. The another big one that happened yesterday, a Washington Post columnist. She revealed in Substack that she was fired by the Post over her posts amid the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And this person just seems to have an inclination to go out and run their mouths.
The linchpin in that firing was, as a journalist, it is verboten to make editorial changes within the confines of a quotation.
Right.
She is guilty of that. So she was terminated.
Works for me. I mean, so much for journalistic standards and protocol. Oh, my gosh. She, of course, says she was fired by the Post over her social media writings. Oh, man. So, I think we're going to see some lawsuits. I don't think there's any question about that. I still maintain my position that I think everybody ought to be hired under an at-will employment agreement. Sometimes you're not, and it makes it virtually impossible to terminate somebody. Unions are specialists in negotiating such contracts, often in government. You know that. You hear that complaint all the time. These folks are permanent fixtures, and no matter what they do or don't do, we can't seem to move them out and replace them or just end their jobs altogether. And so even in what the Trump administration has done across the landscape of the federal government, there have been lots of lawsuits launched after that. And in some cases, judges have ruled, you got to bring all these people back. But in this case, in the case of a private entity, the Washington Post, the Office Depot, I believe that they have a right to hire and fire whoever they want for whatever reason or without reason.
And that was the point I made in the gathering of the minds was, well, you have a First Amendment to state your opinions, no matter how vile those opinions and beliefs may be. And your employer has their First Amendment right to freedom of association and not want to be around you anymore.
Yeah, and that's a great point in that
everybody's First Amendment rights were upheld. You were just not protected from the consequences of your actions.
I believe you're absolutely spot on in that the First Amendment protects an employer's right, as I just described, to bring in and terminate whomever they want.
And the ultimate irony is every single Democrat politician decrying cancel culture at this point, at some point in the last 5 years, has defended cancel culture on these same grounds. I'm simply reiterating the points they've already made.
Yeah, there seems to be a selective application of that standard, no doubt. And when it suits
Democrat politicians are duplicitous? No.
When it suits them politically, they're all about it. But when they deem it to be not in their best interest politically, then they oppose it. We're stepping aside for a break. Ted Richardson from the Ole Miss Declaration Center comes on at 10:35.
Middays with Gerard Gibert.
What? This is so
awesome. On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
We are back with you in the Element Wealth Studio, 601-879-4395. That is the ceasefire text line. Once again, Ted Richardson, postdoctorate student at the Ole Miss Declaration Center for the Study of American Freedom, will join the program in the next segment. Kiona Pharr, foster care director of Palmer Home for Children, joins middays at 12:05. So just a little clarification on what I was talking about with respect to this student that was found hung in a tree on the campus of Delta State University. The Bolivar County coroner, this is why they concluded there was no foul play, said there was, can confirm that the deceased did not suffer, and I'm quoting directly here, any lacerations, contusions, compound fractures, broken bones, or injuries consistent with an assault. So after a thorough examination, as coroners do, of the deceased, that was the official statement from the Bolivar County coroner and the conclusion there. So just wanted to clarify. The Office Depot refused to do their job sounds like a firing offense on the ceasefire text line. Sure. Yeah, you refuse an assigned task. And again, it doesn't matter.
A task that was already paid for. Right,
exactly. Yeah, I mean, that's what you're in the business to do, is sell goods and services. This was a service provided, and it's the revenue produced from said services. I know it's second-order thinking. That's what's used to pay these people. Oh, my gosh, unbelievable. So on the ceasefire text line, this is from the 731. You guys are pro-cancel culture now? Did we say that? No. I'll reiterate, I'm pro-at-will employment. I don't know how to make it any more clear than that. I just believe in the right of private parties to negotiate contracts that essentially dictate their terms and conditions of their employ. Simple as that. And I believe core to such agreements is the provision of at-will employment. It just means I can fire you, I can hire you, I can pay you, whatever I want. And you can leave, by the way, whenever you want, for any or no reason, no cause required. There, of course, are legal cases where someone squawks and says, I was fired without cause. And those make their way to court, and just like these will make their way court. I'm confident of that. There will be some that will spend the money, and there are many cases where they probably won't have to. You'll have opportunistic lawyers that will hop on these cases trying to earn some name for themselves, of course, as a big crusader.
Like the worthless waste of space running for Congress in Georgia that's from Mississippi?
Who's that?
Carlos Moore.
I didn't know about that. Enlighten us.
Oh, he's trying to racialize the sad incident at Delta State because that's all he knows how to do.
Always have to inject
stoke the flames of racism and be a worthless waste of oxygen.
That's so disappointing when people do that and try to just hop on that bandwagon no matter what the incident situation is. But
he's a perfect example of an opportunistic leftist lawyer that would totally take these cases for free.
That is absolutely right. That's precise. So, being pro-cancel culture? No. And you know what, Rhino? Just thinking back, how many times did we say, we completely respect that these companies have a right to do whatever they did that was deemed as canceling, part of the cancel culture. One that comes to mind was Uncle Ben's rice, for example, right? How about Major League Baseball moving the All-Star game? That seems to be one of the first that happened. And you could just go down the list of all the other companies that change their markings and their logos and their branding and their messaging. And in some cases, remove people. You can just go down the list of all that. You know what? We made it clear. We fully respect your right to take such actions. We think it's stupid. We think it's not in your best interest. Have they not also learned and rolled back much of that, departed away from a lot of that because they realize that really doesn't help our business? And
once again, I'll regurgitate the left's now half-decade-old talking points. It's not cancel culture. It's accountability culture.
Yeah.
They got people canceled for cracking their knuckles, for wearing an Obama mask, and for donating $25 to the Kyle Rittenhouse Defense Fund. Now people are getting fired for showing their demonic subhuman side in public and thinking that they were in the majority of opinion.
That's true. Well, there's so many examples of that. Aunt Jemima, that's another one that just came to mind. Remember that? Again, you have, as far as I'm concerned, a full right to do that, the parent company there, to change all the branding and get rid of that iconic photo of a person we thought to be that represented the brand of Aunt Jemima. Take that off your pancakes and your syrup and all that stuff. You have a right to do that. It's stupid, in my view. Amazon did some stuff. Heineken did some stuff. Apple. There's a whole bunch of examples of it. I mean, it swept America's corporate landscape. It's died down since then. And like I said, there are numerous other examples. But again, fully support their right to do something like that I think was stupid from a business perspective, because these are businesses. And these are businesses that ventured into cultural, political dynamics that were not in their best business interest. And in this case, when they're terminating employees that act foolish in the wake of this horrific assassination that the whole world has now seen, they are fully within their right to do so. As far as I'm concerned, now again, somebody's going to test that in the court. Multiple people will likely file lawsuits, and like you were just explaining, there will be opportunistic lawyers that honestly are out to make a name for themselves, and they're shakedown artists, they're race pimps often, and they're left-wing radicals as well, and they'll take on these suits to see how that will perhaps inflate their brand, their personal brand, their legal services brand. They have a right to do that, as far as I'm concerned. And the courts will have to deal with it. But I think these employers, again, stopping short of if they had some sort of contract in place that would prohibit them from taking such action. Some sort of provisions, it'd be highly unusual, honestly.
Outside of a union job.
Outside of a union. I mean, the standards, you know that, and the criteria to terminate anyone who's in a union generally exceeds dramatically those who are not in unions. Unions sell that as one of their benefits. Hey, you join the union, no matter how poorly you perform and how stupidly you act, we'll make sure you don't lose your job, right? And that's why unions, I think, have fallen out of favor to a great extent, because they're just shakedown artists at the end of the day. You send me your money and I'll grant you these protections, but you're also giving up a lot as well, and that's why such a small percentage of our workforce is unionized. Not like the days that the left always wants us to, the Gilded Age, the left always wants to remind us of, as if we're still in that. Like so many that are constantly beating the drums of racism, also maintain that we're still in the 1860s as well, right? That we've not made any progress since then. But I'll go on to say, if you act stupid and do things even in your private life. Now, somebody brought this up to me. Well, what if your employee goes out and burns the American flag? The Supreme Court has already found that under our rights to free speech, you have a right in this country without prosecution from a legal perspective, from a law enforcement perspective. But that should not and does not apply, in my view, to a private agreement between that. So the First Amendment protects the right to private agreements. That's what's missing in this whole deal. Because people on the left want government to be at the table in every private affair. That's the core difference.
Because they worship government as their god.
There's no question. We're stepping aside for a break and coming right back with Ted Richardson, a postdoctorate student at the Ole Miss Declaration Center. Stay with us. Back, and before we get started here, just one final comment to the person who said, so are you guys pro-cancel culture? We're pro-freedom. That's what we are. We're pro-freedom. All of these various companies, organizations, individuals who boycotted or deplatformed, publicly shamed, all the other various modes of, if you will, approaches to methods of canceling. You have a right to do that as far as I'm concerned. We're pro-freedom. I just think a lot of it was stupid and ineffective and unproductive. Final statement on that. We welcome now Ted Richardson, postdoctorate student at the Ole Miss Declaration of Independence Center for the Study of American Freedom. Hey, Ted.
Hey, how's it going?
Going great. Appreciate you joining us today. So, first, your thoughts on just this out for the entire world to see assassination of Charlie Kirk. He was scheduled to be on the Ole Miss campus next month as a result of your relationship with him, is what we understand. What do you think?
Yeah, it was particularly shocking for me. I heard about the assassination before the video came out, and then was watching, trying to figure out what's going on, and it was a really, really hard few days for me. I think that all right-thinking people are mourning. There are people who disagree with Charlie and don't like what he was doing, but even among those, most people have the sense to see what has happened and understand the magnitude of the problem that we're facing, and are trying to unite and do something good in the wake of this, and condemn the evil and try and lift the good. But I heard you talking a little bit about some of the backlash in the wake of it. Seeing the people celebrating and calling him worse names than he was even called when he was alive, condemning his wife and children, condemning Christianity, condemning all sorts of different things, all in the name of the celebration of the death of what is ostensibly an influential young father and husband. It's been very, very disappointing and upsetting, disillusioning. A lot of people that I never would have thought would say things like that have been saying them. And so I guess my main thought is this assassination, it has exposed a lot of people, a lot of the thoughts that they've been keeping to themselves. A lot more people are demonstrating to the world that they're thinking things that we would never have thought possible, and it's a lot more people than I would have thought.
So you probably saw, Ted, that YouGov conducted a survey in the immediate aftermath. 72%, according to their survey, of Americans said violence is never justified. 11% said it can sometimes be justified. Another 12% said they're not sure, and 6% said, I don't want to say. But I guess what was most instructive from this survey was that it revealed that the folks in this country that lean into the left see assassination as an appropriate, acceptable remedy to advance their political agenda way more than people on the right.
Yeah, no, that appears unquestionably to be true. You were talking about cancel culture when we came back from the break, yeah. And assess what has been happening in the wake of Charlie's assassination, the people losing their jobs for saying really stupid stuff. However you like, but this is the same thing that the left was doing, 10 years ago and 5 years ago in the wake of George Floyd. For people not actually saying anything, nobody was celebrating anyone's death. Nobody was calling for any violence, but they were equating people holding right-leaning views with that. And this now is the logical conclusion of that if you say believing a certain thing is violence, saying a certain thing is violence, then violence is justified on someone doing that. And so the rhetoric that the left has been using for such a long time, it's only gotten hotter and hotter and hotter until it was only inevitable that something like this was going to occur. And if the right, if some members of the right have gotten upset enough that they're going to start trying to use in a I would say a tamer way some of the tactics that we've seen in the past that have been used against the right for saying much tamer things than people have been fired for saying in this round of what we call maybe cancellations. I don't think anybody should be shocked by that, at very least.
Yeah, according to the poll, those who consider themselves very liberal, 24% say that it's acceptable to be happy about public figures' deaths. And in the very conservative group, it was 3%. So a huge disparity there. What's going on? What do you see? What do you hear from those that are kind of in your age group? Because there's also a variance by age, and younger folks, according to this poll, tend to see execution, assassination, again, as a proper and acceptable remedy. What do you think's happening?
I think that the problem stems from the nature of the ideas that are being taught in the university, and the university is in a way the vanguard, but these things have gotten all the way down to high school and K through 12 education in general. A few years ago, what we were talking about was CRT. We've turned a little bit to talking more about DEI.
Yeah.
This is what we're talking about, though. If you teach someone that, and these people are being taught this increasingly young, if you teach a young person with their brain still forming and trying to figure out who they are in the world, that some people, what they believe, and just their existence in the world makes them inherently evil or wrong, that already that's exterminationist rhetoric. That's the same kind of rhetoric that you see in Nazi Germany, and it's not of course Nazi Germany in its way was like a right wing government, not a left wing government, but we're seeing the same way of thinking is coming from the left now. That the same way of, lives unworthy of living, useless eaters, unredeemable, people who are born in sin and unredeemable because of their skin color, because of their ancestry, because of the things that their parents believe, because of things that they believe, whatever it is, this is being taught younger and younger, and it's being folded into these people as a personality trait really early. And I think that if you teach people that, it shouldn't be too much of a shock that they think that those sorts of people dying, at very least, isn't a bad thing, even if they don't celebrate it.
Incredible. So what do you see in the university environment there, Ted, on the campus? What are you seeing? Mixed reactions? Are you seeing any reactions from people that are a bit shocking to you?
So I teach in the Declaration of Independence Center, and so most of my experience has been with students and other professors. And what I'll say is, I think there are more professors, at least at University of Mississippi, from what I'm seeing, than not, who would condemn this full out. But I also think that a lot of those professors are scared because there are absolutely people on the University of Mississippi campus. And I should be clear that I'm speaking only for myself, not for the Declaration Center, not for University of Mississippi when I say this. There are certainly people on the University of Mississippi campus who do celebrate this. We saw the prominent firing of somebody from the chancellor's office in the wake of the events, and I think that the people who would condemn this, a lot of them are afraid, and so I guess my message to those people is there's a way to do this. There's a way to do it in a moderate way, and to be careful without getting yourself in any kind of trouble while still standing up for what's right and condemning what's wrong. And I've heard some stories of people who I never would have thought would stand up and say what's right in the wake of this and are doing it. And so it's a mixed bag as anywhere, but I think that there are good things happening at the University of Mississippi in general, and the people who would celebrate this, a lot of them are gonna see what has been happening in the wake of this, and hopefully will reevaluate the way that they think and reevaluate the way they teach. But if not, we have on the federal level, there's rules coming down about the way that we teach these things. And on the state
Ted,
level,
we're up against a break right here, but if you can hang on, we can continue the discussion.
Yep, no problem.
All right, we got Ted Richardson from Ole Miss. Stay with us.
Right now.
And though I'm out on the highway, my thoughts are still with her. Such a strange combination of a woman and a child. Such a strange situation, stopping every 100 miles, calling bad
We're back with you in the Element Well studio. Correction, Ted Richards. Apologize for that. My sheet said Richardson. Apologize for that, Ted, but we got it right now. He is a postdoctorate student at the Ole Miss Declaration Center. We're just talking about the passing of his friend, Charlie Kirk, which occurred last week. So he was scheduled to be on campus next month, correct? You had a hand in getting him to Ole Miss. Can we expect that event to still be held? What's going to go on there?
Yeah, so we've heard from Turning Point's national office that they're planning on keeping the tour. I don't know exactly what all the details will be, but they're not going to cancel the tour dates, and so something is still going to happen. And I'll just say for our part at the Declaration Center, even if Turning Point for some reason is unable or decides they don't want to go forward with that we're going to make sure something happens on October 29th on campus in honor of Charlie Kirk.
Well, there's rumor going around that perhaps Charlie's widow, Erica, will attend and be at the university. Yeah,
I've heard some of that as well. None of it has been confirmed. I'm in contact with the national team. I haven't heard any specific confirmations of anything like that as yet, but that would be exciting. Okay.
So what are you talking about in the classroom at the Declaration Center regarding this? Are you guys discussing this? I know we're only a couple of days in class time since this incident occurred. What's the discussion all about?
Yeah, So I taught a class on Wednesday, but it was before the shooting happened. But on Friday when we got back together, we probably spent 20 or 30 minutes of a 50-minute class talking about the event and what it means and the reactions to it and how we should think about it. And we also had the Declaration Center has a weekly symposium in the basement of Tom Beckby on the square.
Yeah.
And when we got together for that, we talked a little bit about it there as well, and we talked about how to be brave be courageous despite the dangers that we're facing. Frankly, that Charlie Kirk, who in a lot of ways was a political moderate, he's a normal, sort of right in the center Republican. He wasn't an extremist, and anybody who's to the right of him, you can imagine is feeling it's hard to not take this personally. And so we're talking about the kids on how to be strong and how to be firm despite the fear that this is trying to inspire.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And, of course, I think young people are trying to process this and put it in perspective. What does this mean? And this seemingly rise in the idea of assassination as a solution to the problems that you confront. It just seems to have taken hold, and we've begun to sanction and even normalize it. I guess before this incident with Charlie Kirk, the assassination in broad daylight of the United Healthcare CEO, and then in the wake of that, almost the deification of Luigi Mangione, the killer, the assassin. It's just incredible.
Yeah, Charlie actually warned not long before his death about the rise of assassination culture, particularly on the left. And, unseating tyrants, the right of revolution, this is a part of America's fiber, and it wouldn't take much in the mind of someone who's been educated in the wrong way to twist that and say that anyone who I don't agree with, anyone who thinks differently of me, than me, rather, is a tyrant and is somebody who's worthy of that.
Yeah. It's incredible that we've gotten to that point. What else are you focused on at the Declaration Center these days?
Well, we're the Declaration Center for the Study of American Freedom, and so more than anything, we're always focused on freedom, and we provide a great curriculum for the kids. In college, if you're going to learn anything about America, it's usually going to be how bad America is and how much you should hate it and why it's evil. We are specifically, our mission is to counter that we think America is good and that there are reasons that it's good and we should discuss those. And
Sure.
So we're providing an education in that for these kids, as well as we provide public programming for people to come. Like we were co-sponsoring Charlie's event. He was coming But we do the same with lots of other, great public lectures and with our symposium to encourage an environment that favors freedom and favors free dialogue on campus so that it's not all skewed one way the way it usually is.
Yeah, I totally agree. We got to go, but I just make this final statement and let you respond. It just feels like, just based on all the reports, all the examples, that college campuses are just overwhelmed with faculty, administrators, content that leans left, and they don't get the other ideas.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And like I said, that's what our mission particularly is to combat. And, speaking for myself, not for the Center or for University of Mississippi, I can say that something large needs to change on college campuses around the country, because if we're vilifying one side of the aisle, we see the predictable results of that this past.
Totally agree.
If you
Appreciate
vilify
it,
those people, that's what happens.
Thank you, man.
Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by the Mississippi Business Journal. Visit msbusinessjournal.com. Scott Coopwood, publisher and president.
Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's hour 2 of Middays from the Element Wealth Studio. We appreciate Ted Richards, a postdoctorate student at the Ole Miss Declaration of Independence Center for the Study of American Freedom. That was great to have him on and offer his perspective. And, he confirmed what you and I talked about. It's good to hear someone who is literally in a college environment on a campus. Now, I've shared that on my speaking engagements when I interact with the students, and they'll report this as well, that there's bias in the classroom. And it's not unique to Ole Miss, let's be clear here, where professors feel compelled to grade and just to treat and handle students differently based on their political leanings. Yet, these are the same people that scream the end of democracy and fascism, and they're practicing it in their classrooms. It's just mind-boggling, the hypocrisy of the whole situation. Up there at Ole Miss also, I got this out of the Daily Mississippian today, and it concerns the law school. And once again, it's about the so-called anti-DEI bill that passed here in the state of Mississippi. And, of course, there's some question as to the legal standing, the status of that legislation, because a district judge, U.S. District Judge Henry Wingate, he felt the need to issue a preliminary injunction blocking the law's enforcement. While this case, of course, you knew there was going to be a case. As soon as the bill was passed, before it was passed, you knew there would be so-called aggrieved parties that would take this up as a cause and take it to court and try to argue that, no, you can't prohibit the use of DEI in admissions or hiring or compensation, any sort of other decisions made in the educational environment in Mississippi. That's essentially what it said. So you can't say, hey, we got a quota on enrollment, for example. We got to have this many of these and this many of those, and that's how we're going to admit people. And you certainly can't, you're not allowed under this legislation. You shouldn't even have to pass laws to do this. But you can't hold one's opinions against them when you're issuing grades in the classroom. Often the basis of their careers. I mean, it's pretty important. They should get what they earned, and there should be an equitable grading system that doesn't concern itself with the political ideology or the immutable characteristics of the student or their sexual orientation and all that sort of stuff. That's not a factor, should not be, in grading or anything that occurs in the educational environment. But yet, this judge said, no, you can't do that. In other words, we have concerns. This would be the judge's opinion, has concerns that, no, K through 12 and colleges in the state of Mississippi should be able to discriminate, essentially, is what he says. The purpose of this bill was just to ensure that discrimination was not occurring. Well, their faculty at my alma mater, the University of Mississippi, who have expressed concern over whether they should make adjustments to course content. You're also not permitted, as I recall, under the law to teach that certain groups are superior to other groups. We already had a very simple law that passed a couple of years. I think this kind of doubled down on it, signed into law by Governor Reeves in April. So they're concerned about their content in their curricula. So an associate professor of English at the university, in an interview with the Daily Mississippian, that would be Deanna Kreisel. I'm not sure if I pronounced her name correctly. I apologize if I didn't. Kreisel. Could be Kreisel. I pronounced it Kreisel. Says, quote, the stipulation against DEI programs and hiring practices is problematic.
Because it doesn't toe the party line of the Democrat Party.
Right. So,
because these people make their politics their entire public-facing personality.
Correct. Can't you just teach English?
Apparently not. Apparently you also have to be a social justice warrior and a political partisan.
That's what's wrong on college campuses. That's what's wrong. That's what's totally wrong. Do you think any parents send their kids off to school, hey, go become a social justice warrior, go learn all about that?
Oh, I'm sure there are some.
That's sad.
The same kind of parents that raised their kids to believe that the good news was President Trump or J.D. Vance or Elon Musk dying.
That you shared for the folks yesterday in a despicable
apparently it's
video.
Not just the mother that's encouraging these violent thoughts in their children. Apparently the father works in the military at a pretty high rank, and he also espouses these same beliefs.
Oh, my gosh. Unbelievable. So Professor Kreisel says it prevents the university from addressing the long-standing patterns of discrimination and ensuring an even playing field for job applicants and other members of the university community. In other words, she's reading out of the playbook of Ibram Kendi, who we now know is famous for saying, we must fight past racism with current racism. In other words, it's okay to be a racist today as a counter to racism that existed in the past. Essentially sanctioning racism. And also goes on to say present racism is to be countered with future racism. In other words, he's advocating for the permanent continuation of racism. I thought the idea was to eradicate it.
Well, you got to remember the left has redefined racism to include a power dynamic so that black people cannot be accused of racism.
Ah, okay, right. It only fits neatly into certain categories, right? Which really is the definition of racism. Unbelievable.
Welcome to the circular logic of the left.
The university is monitoring the case to ensure that we are complying with the law as it works its way through the court system. Jacob Batt, Director of News and Media Relations at UM, said in an email to the Daily Mississippian just last week, September 10th. The university monitors legislative and legal matters closely and provides updates to campus leaders when appropriate. Cliff Johnson, a UM law professor, worries that his curriculum may violate the new ban. So let me ask you this, Rhino. If he's worried about it, does that mean his curriculum, in fact, does
teach discrimination?
Right. Exactly. So the ban just says you can't discriminate. I'm so damn confused. I really am. I thought that these decades of efforts were to eliminate discrimination. Isn't that what the 1964 Civil Rights Act was supposed to be all about?
Sold.
And Charlie Kirk pointed out often that, what it was sold to be and how it manifested in practice and reality were two different things. That he said, the horror of him saying, I think this may have done more harm than good. Is he wrong? No, he's not. Now, people listening to us probably say, well, you guys are racist. You don't believe in equality. No, that's not true whatsoever. We don't agree that the government should interfere and force preferential treatment across all these various endeavors and disciplines. That is discrimination. Why don't they get that? Oh, let's see. I got 2 applicants for a job. A white person, a black person. Oh, well, it doesn't really matter. The black person's going to get the job. That's been happening. That's what DEI does. It's forced diversity. It's forced equity. It's forced inclusion. That's harming society. We've got to return to an environment, a system where merit always wins out. And performance and value and quality. That's how we're all better served in society. Not based on skin color, etc. Coming right back.
Mississippi.
We got some sound we're going to get to you in a second that Rhino sent to me. Before we get to that, I just want to continue with this story from the Daily Mississippian from Professor Creasel. Says, unfortunately, the bill is very vague and confusingly worded, and it has already had a profound chilling effect.
This is an English teacher?
Right. I read the bill. I didn't find it to be confusing.
Intentionally ignorant or obtuse.
Profound chilling effect on campus speech and teaching. Many faculty are very concerned that the way that they normally teach their subject material could be literally against the law. I might very well have to rewrite lectures that mention gender and race and essentially censor my pedagogy in order to comply with the law, as will every single faculty member. Now, hold on a second. She teaches English. Yeah, I'm getting pissed. Why are you talking about gender? What the hell's that got to do with English? Can't we just teach people how to read and write? And whatever you study in English at the college level? You can't do that, right? Can't you just teach law, how to practice law in the law school? How about, I don't know, math in the math class? It's because you've taken this setting to become your little incubator of your social justice garbage. Well, that's the problem. No wonder you're worried about it. Because you are, in fact, breaking the law. You just told us. You're discriminating in the classroom, teaching discriminatory, divisive concepts. I read the bill. It basically says, hey, universities, you can't have diversity statements. You can't train. You can't include that sort of content in your syllabus. And You can't teach that. You can't teach transgender ideology, can't have gender-neutral pronouns, all that kind of stuff. What's wrong with that? Why? Here's the bigger, more fundamental question. What the hell did that ever have to do with teaching in the classroom and a college education to start with? Play the sound.
I'm learning that there's a big difference between white liberals and white conservatives. The white liberal has, white guilt. They live in the past, and they want black people to stay in the past. Oh, you poor slaves. We remember when we were whipping you on the plantation, and we have so much guilt now. We want to help you now. We want to give you welfare. No. Black people don't go get jobs. No, how dare you? Why would you? We want to fight for your right to be in poverty for the rest of your lives. We know that your kids don't know how to use computers, none of them. And as a result, none of y'all know how to get driver's license so that you can vote. Yeah, white liberals are stuck in the past and have white guilt, and that's how they interact with the black community from that mindset. Whereas white conservatives don't want to live in the past, period. They want everybody to get over it so that we can all move on and have a better future. They do not see you're black, you're gay, you're this, you're that. They see you are an American. You are an American citizen, which means that we are the same and that we should unite for what is right. Big difference.
That is spot on.
And before any of the mealy-mouthed nitwits that want to call us racist for daring to play something like that, that's an African-American woman speaking on her lived experience. So sit down and shut up.
That was spot on, profound, 100% accurate, and it does align to a great extent to what we talk about here is you guys are all living in the past. You won't acknowledge the future. And none of us have ever said it's perfect and that we don't have work to do. Sure we do. We acknowledge that. But we also recognize that tremendous progress has been made. What Charlie Kirk said over and over again, you know this, whenever he would confront someone that would call him a white supremacist, is that, that he had white privilege. Well, what can I do that you can't? That's the perfect response to that. I know what, as a white person, when I was in business, I couldn't do that minorities could. That's win contracts from public sector entities that gave preferential treatment to non-white males. But yet, that's perfectly acceptable because that's essentially countering, offsetting, retribution, if you will, for past racism committed 150 years ago. It's crazy. And I'm still just upset and blown away that this professor says I cannot overstate how damaging and far-ranging the effects could be on students if the law is allowed to stand. You mean that you can't teach divisive concepts in the classroom? That's harmful to students?
No, it's harmful to their mission to decolonize and deconstruct American institutions and patriotism. Because they're all commies.
To teach that there are only two biological sexes? That's going to harm students to teach that?
It will if you're deluded into believing you can change your sex and that men can get pregnant.
You know what? You make that choice, and if just the fact that in society we still recognize what is the absolute truth and fact, biological fact. And often, when Charlie Kirk would get confronted with the definition of a woman and he would rattle that off real quick. an adult female with XX chromosomes, and then that would be countered by someone, well, I feel like a woman. I should be considered a woman. I'm sorry, you're still a man.
I think my favorite point of his that he made against that was just because you're dressed like Caesar doesn't mean you're the ruler of Rome.
That's awesome. That's great. So you can't promote, implement, establish these DEI programs, but yet we all know that they're skirting that. Many institutions are, including in our state. They've just resurfaced under different names, or they've been kind of spread out, perhaps don't look as concentrated. I'm just upset that we have members of a faculty in a Mississippi institution of higher ed that are worried that if I can't teach divisive concepts, my students are going to be harmed. That if I can't teach gender ideology in English class, my students are missing out. My God, Rhino, how did folks from my generation make it by taking English and not being exposed to that? How in the hell did we succeed in life? My gosh, it's just incredible. And these addressing long-standing patterns of discrimination. Should we talk about that in a historical context? And even if you can cite examples that are occurring in present society. Sure, let's talk about that. Fair game. But to discriminate as a way to discuss it, not even to discuss it, but just to handle it and deal with it, that's completely out of whack. I mean, that makes no sense. To fight discrimination, we got to discriminate more. Because that's what they're mad about. You mean I can't discriminate anymore? My gosh, how am I going to make it? How am I going to survive? I don't get it. I'm disturbed. I'm disturbed that people like her receive tenure. And there's probably people listening to me right now that are all mad at me. I don't care. I'm speaking my opinion. It's what I get paid to do. And I'm speaking what I believe to be fact. And anybody that questions my love and commitment to the university doesn't know me very well. It's got nothing to do with that.
Just like anybody that says we're racist doesn't know us very well.
That's exactly right.
They're showing their ignorance.
They want us to be. They want us to fit
because it's
that profile.
Easier to demonize and dehumanize those that are, quote-unquote, other, to use the left's term.
So true. And they tend to feel some sick sense of empowerment from it. I don't like power over us in some way or diminishing us. Just leave me alone. All we want is freedom. We're for equitable opportunity, equal opportunity, not equity of outcomes forced through law and society. And all this law basically says is, yeah, you can't do that anymore. And honestly, it stopped short of what it could have done, but this is the best we could get. I think it's a great starting point and fully necessary. I'm proud of our legislature and our governor for signing this into law. And we got poor, pitiful little aggrieved, upset professors that are worried that they can't continue teaching division and hate. That's just unbelievable to me.
Well, how else are they going to get their little Marxist minions? Their ideas certainly aren't convincing.
That's very true. Coming right back in the Element Well studio.
The best
Don't think sorry's easily said. Don't try turning tables instead.
So we had a couple of people that wanted to know the name of the lady in the video. Do you have that?
Sadly, I couldn't find her username or her name to give her credit. I looked for it last night. That was part of a compilation, but I would love to hear more about what she has to say. I just couldn't find her name. I'll keep digging, though.
Well, it was brave of her, honestly, because she's likely being ostracized by those on the left in this country, and including the white elite liberals that she mentioned who think automatically any black person's got to stand with leftist ideology.
And speaking of bravery, I would like to give kudos to 6 congressional Democrats that had the humanity to show up at the Capitol for the vigil honoring the life of Charlie Kirk when none of their other contemporaries could find it in their schedule to show up. Debbie Dingell from Michigan, Tom Suozzi from New York, Don Davis from North Carolina, John Larson from Connecticut, Jimmy Panetta from California, and Mary Gluesenkamp Perez from Washington were the 6 congressional Democrats that are willing to show their humanity in front of their voting bloc. I can only presume that the rest of the Democrats refuse to show up because they would fear either reprisal or not being reelected, because deep down they know that a sizable enough percentage of their voting bloc would vote them out if they dared honor the life of Charlie Kirk.
Unbelievable. I think you're right about that.
So to those 6 congressional Democrats, kudos. Maybe consider running as independents.
Yeah.
Because the Democrat Party obviously does not have a heart, does not have a soul, and is filled with inhumane, subhumane wastes of space.
They have a total lack of respect for human life, except inasmuch as it's a human life that also sides with their radical ideology. Anybody who differs with it is expendable, it appears, in their view. Just incredible. They don't deserve to serve in the United States House, in my view. So the University of Mississippi law professor that also has a problem, Cliff Johnson, he worries that his curriculum may violate the new ban. Quote, I think I'm in a very difficult position. I can teach my class as usual and run the risk of being disciplined, or I could abandon something that's very important to me. He added that he did not believe that the law would allow him to teach about the First, 14th, and 15th Amendments. Is that probably because, Rhino, when he teaches these amendments, he teaches them from a perspective of racism, of structural racism in society, and probably relates those amendments, the latter two, passed, of course, after the Civil War. One simply, the 14th was about citizenship, guaranteed citizenship and equal protection, as I recall, for citizens under the law and due process for those citizens. And the 15th dealt with protection of voting rights that basically said you can't deny a person the right to vote based on their race or national origin or color of their skin, etc. So I just ask, who in this country, who is a bona fide, authenticated U.S. citizen, can't vote? The left wants you to think that that's just happening on a widespread basis, that there's voter suppression practiced by conservatives. And that's just untrue. And they'll say, requiring a voter ID, that's suppressing the vote. The fact that you have to prove you're who you are when you show up. And go through this diatribe, this litany of reasons why that's untenable and just too difficult to attain, a simple voter ID. Just looking for anything to score political points, it seems.
Well, they can't tell the truth that it gets in the way of their cheating.
That's sad but true. But so I look at the law and think, well, what is it you want to say about the First and 14th and 15th Amendments? Should that be discussed in law school? Sure.
He wants to say that all white people, no matter how distant they are from the scourge of slavery, must still live under the burden of that sin.
I think that's exactly right. And relate those amendments to it, since both of those really stem from, certainly the 14th and 15th, from the Civil War, just clarifying slavery's over. These are American citizens. They're entitled to the protections of all American citizens. And by the way, the 15th Amendment says that includes the right to vote. Sure, we need to recognize that our country did a good thing in passing those amendments, that our Congress and President ratifying, the people ratifying such amendments into our Constitution. Absolutely. But now, of course, the left in this country wants to take over elections and federalize elections. And they not only seek to protect, in accordance with the Constitution, the right of citizens, they want to extend that right to non-citizens. That's where they get awry with the Constitution and at odds with it. I don't know. I'm not suggesting this guy's teaching that. Maybe. But what is he worried about? Just trying to make a scene, call attention, looking for their feelings to come into play here? Can't you just teach the law and teach the amendments, the background on the amendments, the purpose? I could see that. Maybe discuss where we are today.
But when you're on the left, you look for the most bad faith argument and you try to use it to justify your stupidity.
It's just
with malicious compliance. Oh, well, they said I can't teach anything divisive, so I've got to apply that in the most backwards way possible to try to prove a point.
Yeah, in the hopes that the court would rule in their favor and essentially nullify this law so they can continue their practice of discrimination and social activism in the classroom. I'm still trying to figure out why gender is important in English. Are they like teaching pronoun crap or something like that, maybe?
Well, they're likely trying to minimize the impact of Judeo-Christian or white European authors and to center the voices of those that were underrepresented in literature.
That could be. You could be right.
Instead of just teaching lit and English.
Oh, man. Here's an idea. How about trying to set up an interview? This is on the C Spire text line so she can explain her point. I'd be happy to talk to the professor if she'd come on, and she could expect that, as is always the case with our guests, that they would be treated with respect and civility and fairness. Would not talk over them. Let them make their points. I may differ and counter. That's what we do here. Yeah, I'd love to hear that as well. I cannot, for the life of me, find any justification for all this DEI ideology. There is none. It's insane, honestly. It is at odds with our law, with our Constitution. It's at odds with the 14th and 15th Amendment to a great extent. Certainly the 14th, equal protection, because what DEI does is make things unequal. It skews everything in favor of certain classes of people. The very thing I thought we have been working towards eliminating and doing a pretty damn good job, if I do say so. Charlie Kirk was right. What can he do that you can't? There's plenty of opportunity. Quit complaining. Get to work. Take advantage of those opportunities. Man, are you paying attention to what's happening in the economy here? It's incredible. This human innovation is opening up opportunities and doors and possibilities that couldn't even be imagined a short 5 years ago. And there's massive amount of wealth that's going to be created as a result of it, because as we talked about with Jeremy Nelson yesterday, the only way you produce wealth is to be more productive. And all of this innovation is making us way more productive. And productivity generates wealth. Participate in it. Quit complaining. It ain't that hard to do. But I'd be happy to talk to her for sure. Speaking of tenure, how many professions have a mechanism in place? This is Louis from the 662 that pretty much negates the employer's ability to fire an employee. Yeah, for the record, I hear you, Louis, and I agree. For the record, I think tenure ought to be abolished. I think it's ridiculous. I've said it before, and I'll reiterate it. I believe in at-will employment. At-will means I just don't want you teaching here anymore. You're fired. I ought to have the right to do that as an employer. In this case, the employer is taxpayer-funded institutions of higher learning. I admit it's partially taxpayer-funded. It's partially federal. That's also taxpayer-funded. And then, of course, you have a tuition revenue stream as well. But nonetheless, I still support the idea of at-will employment. It just makes for better outcomes for everyone. Coming right back in the Element Wealth studio.
Polyupa, Mississippi.
Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It is Middays. Aaron from Madison wanted to know if there's a list of the professors. I have a student, I assume at Ole Miss, and would like for them to avoid those professors if possible. No, I don't know of any sort of published list. I just have this article that was released in the Daily Mississippian this morning, and two professors specifically were cited in the piece. Professor Deanna Creasel, who teaches English, professor of English at the university, and then it's Professor Cliff Johnson in the law school. But you heard our conversation with Ted Richards earlier that, yeah, it's pervasive on campus. I think that was the point he made. And someone said that a lot of the liberal students come from out of state. Well, the fact is most of the students on the campus come from out of state, so naturally you're going to have that. But I think we're naive to think that they don't live within our state and come from within our state as well. I think that would be misguided, honestly. So
just look underneath any post on social media by any elected Republican, and you'll see the crazies that live right here in the Magnolia State that can't resist showing their butt in public and letting everybody know just how stupid and miserable they are.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's alive and well and in our midst as well. Kevin in Monticello, there's a lot more opportunity available than we use, black and white both included in that. Oh, it's absolutely, and I have often cited that as the primary reason for so-called income inequality in our country, and that's just because those who are at the top of the ladder there, the top of the list in terms of their income, they have use their God-given talents to leverage all those tools available to them to produce something that society embraces and is willing to spend their money on, and it made them wealthy.
It's just another example of the left is stuck in the past. There was a point in time, mainly the Gilded Age, where a majority of the country's richest individuals acquired that wealth through inheritance. That is no longer the case. Very few of the wealthiest individuals in the United States of America acquired their wealth through inheritance.
There are 800 billionaires in the country. Less than a third inherited. 2/3 and more. And think about how many of them became billionaires in the last 10 years. But as we progress through time, that number is going to expand in terms of the newly minted billionaires. And we're going to produce more, and the left's going to go crazy because 4 or 5 years ago, we had 500 billionaires, I think. Now we got 800. I dare say within the next couple of years, we'll have 1,000, right?
Easily
1,000. And they'll really freak out because I personally believe within 5 years, there will be 3 to 5 trillionaires. And I'm just astonished at the talking points that they and the rhetoric they continue to spew that, yeah, it's billionaires. They're the problem with society. They're the ones who are making your life miserable. Unbelievable. Wow, they, of course, use the tools that the billionaires created to distribute their talking points and their logic. Golly. Incredible. Oh, man. Gary in the Berg says, why are so many teachers and staff liberal? How did they become one? Who teaches the teachers? Why have so many red states allowed this to go on? Well, the simple answer is, Gary, we don't want to force anybody into being a teacher. I don't know, honestly. It's just it's kind of evolved in that direction over the decades. I mean, academia has always been somewhat more left-leaning, but I think it's gone from being left-leaning, where we maybe had some disagreement over key core issues, to just gone full Monty to the left, where it's Marxism, it's communism. We got a guy that's about to be elected in New York, which we often thought was the heart of capitalism with Wall Street. It's largely the reason for 9/11.
There is a stark difference between the liberalism of the 40s, 50s, and 60s compared to what is called liberalism nowadays, which is actually just a front for full-blown communism.
Totally true. And that's what's bothersome, is that we're headed more in that direction than we are anything else, that we're not just talking about sort of moderate liberal ideology. We're talking about radical. And that's what's disturbing, and how so many of these professors and teachers, because it's, as you know, it's not just higher ed, it's at all levels of education. I've got a story here that I'll share real quick before we get off the air. It's from Toronto. I know that's not the U.S., but it's a teacher in a third grade classroom that played the horrific video. You've seen this, the video of the horrific shooting of Charlie Kirk, and then blasted him and basically said, yeah, he deserved it. We're talking about the third graders. Third graders. These people are sick to use children that way for their own personal political agenda. Coming right back after Fox News and SuperTalk News with Kiona Pharr from the Palmer.
And now, another hour of the talk that keeps Mississippi talking. Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Begin your transition now.
Now on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Well studio. We want to pass on that Ratchet Entertainment Group is turning up the energy this fall with football Friday nights in Oxford, 3 epic nights, 3 incredible bands, all the fun. We'll provide some details later on in the program, but you can find more out and get your tickets at OleMissConcerts.com. That's OleMissConcerts, plural.com. We welcome now Kiona Pharr, Foster Care Director, Palmer Home for Children. Hey, Kiona, good to see you.
Hi, Gerard.
All right, tell us what's the latest at the Palmer Home. We were up there, of course, for the big radiothon this past July. Had a banner day, did really well. Always enjoy being amongst the staff and the children and the house parents and so forth. What's been going on since then?
Oh, goodness. It's already been a busy year. You know, all the kids have gotten back into school, and the young adults are all working and in college. So we've got a lot of things going on. They're all busy and in their routines. And so just, you know, something different every day here at Palmer Home. So,
well, that's good. Yeah, so you got some events coming up, right, you want to talk to us about?
We do. So this month, actually, next week, we have Shotguns and Sunflowers. So that's a fun event that we've got coming up. We'll have another tailgate coming up at MSU, Mississippi State. So all you Bulldog fans out there, hop on and join that. But yeah, that's what we've got going on right now, immediately in the near future.
Okay, good stuff. Really good stuff. So tell us more about the foster family component that you're involved with there at Palmer Home.
So I've actually, and this is new, Gerard, it just recently happened since the last time I spoke with you. I am over the children's programs now.
Okay.
I am working with all of our service lines. So we have foster care, as you know, and then the campus care program and transitional care here in Mississippi. So I am working with all three of those now. And we're really, working really hard to provide things for children, provide restorative environments, where children can feel safe and be connected to trustworthy adults. We are also just working on permanency, children that come to Palmer Home and working with the families, working with all of them together as a whole, and just letting them know, like, what does this look like? How can we help you? How can we help your family, to bring everyone back together? We call it reunification. And that's something that we really strive to do. So, that's what we're doing now. We've got, so many different things. Like I said, our young adults are doing a lot of things, in transitional care, going to college and working and learning how to be adults so they can, launch out on their own soon. But it's just been, we've had a lot of things changing and just looking at things and just seeing what we can do and how we can provide the best superior care, for these children and families that come to Palmer Home. And one way we want to do that is providing them with trustworthy adults and providing those environments for them. And we need people, we have lots of caregivers that we are in need of. So we really want to talk about that some and talk about some current open positions and the need for people we have here at Palmer Home.
So if someone's interested, Kiona, how do they go about getting in touch with you guys and perhaps applying for these positions?
So they can call our office anytime, obviously. They can also go online, be the easiest way, because you can go online to our website, which is www.palmerhome.org, and you can do /careers, or you can scroll to the bottom of the page and find the careers section, click on it, and it will open up and show you all the job openings that we have. And there's, descriptions there, what they entail. It gives you links that you can actually apply. So it's really a simple process, honestly, just to get on there and do that. And that would be the easiest way for most people if they're interested.
Gotcha. So even though you're not directly involved, what if someone is interested in becoming a foster parent? How would they go about doing that?
So if someone's interested in becoming a foster parent, they can go out on our website again, and they can look through the website, read about it, see how that works here at Palmer Home. They can click on a link and they can leave information. It's basically a form they fill out, and we'll have someone contact them. They can always call our office. We can put them in contact with someone. Fostering is a very unique thing that people do. It's not an easy thing for people to do. So that's one thing that we have here at Palmer Home. And, I look at it as lots of people may be laid on their heart to foster. That little seed's been planted, but they're not sure how to go about doing that. Obviously, one way is with us and doing the foster care, but another way would be to come and work at Palmer Home and be house parents. We need caregivers, and so that's what we call house parents.
Mm-hmm.
It looks different, but you would come and live on our campus, but essentially you're doing the same thing, just like you would if you were fostering. But you come on our campus and you live here and you have several children in your home. And so, someone might shift, they might have that on their mind to do the fostering, but then say, hey, maybe I do want to go work there.
Yeah, good point. Explain to our audience, Kiona, what's the difference between being a foster parent and foster children and then the more permanent aspect in adoption?
So when children are with us and we match them with a foster family, so when you're a foster parent, you are often caring for those children in your home. They'll be in your home, and you'll be working a plan along with everybody at Palmer Home and sometimes with the family. We look at reunification as our first line, that we want to help restore these families and get them back together. And as a foster parent, if we're able to do that, that doesn't mean that your relationship has to stop there with that child. You know, you're able to be a source of support for that family, you know, for the rest of their lives. And that's a beautiful thing with foster care if you're able to build those relationships and do that. So these children might be with them temporarily, or they might be with them until they go into adulthood, you know, and that's the difference. So, because when you adopt, it's a formal process, it's a court process, and there is not the chance of, you know, that children might return. You know, you're not necessarily, when you adopt, you're not necessarily working for reunification at some point with a family.
Yeah, I see. What can you tell us about the number of children currently in the Palmer home? Is that something you can share? Where do you stand on that?
Oh, yeah. So currently we have, we have 13 in our transitional care program right now that are living in our transitional care homes. We have a few that are living independently that have already launched from that. So that's a huge plus. And then on our campus right now, we have approximately 20, but our numbers have been bouncing a lot. We've been able to take several in, and then we've also been able to work with families, and we've had some children that have left. But often as soon as they're gone, we're getting more, you know, so our numbers go all over the place. They can be 20, we can have 40 here at one time. You know, we never know what we have from time to time.
And we want to reiterate, the goal, however, is to get them reunified, right, into a loving, nurturing home.
Yes.
That's the goal.
It is. And that's all. Yeah, that's the goal. It really is, because, you know, sometimes people just are in a spot that they need help, they need support, and there's nothing wrong with that. You know, it's to be respected if, you know, a parent or a caregiver or guardian says, you know, we need some help. You know, you just have to respect people when they recognize that, and then they come, and we all work together. We all work together, case managers, house parents, everybody here at Palmer Home that's involved with that particular child and that family work together to reunify them and make sure that it works well and to stick with them so that it can be lasting.
Yeah. So it often includes some degree of counseling with the parents, the caretakers themselves, right?
Yes. So when caretakers and parents when we're working with them, we work at what's called a service plan. We really sit down with them and say, what do you need? What does this look like in order to get your child back with you, to bring your family back together? So we work a service plan, and that's something that it's not just for the parents. The case managers have to do, they have goals they have to meet too in working with this family, just like the parents would.
Yeah. Appreciate it. Kiona, always good to talk to you. Thanks for coming on. Kiona Pharr, Director of Children's Programs at the Palmer Home for Children. Appreciate it, Kiona. Thanks.
Thank you.
We're coming right back in the Element Wealth studio.
The greatest of these is love people, love people. We all need love people. Underneath the surface, everybody's the same. Everything that could divide us, can we all set that aside and just love people, love people. We all need love people. Love is kind, love is all we really got. We all need love people.
Since 1871, Gaddis McLaurin Mercantile in downtown Bolton has been providing everything you need. Everything for your house, fencing, plumbing, flowers, lumber. Everything for your animals, dogs, cats, birds, chickens, cows, horses. And everything for your patio and yard. Bayou Classic cookers, wind chimes, Orca and Pelican coolers. We have most everything. 150 years of serving the community, family owned and operated. Gaddis McLaurin Mercantile, downtown Bolton since 1871. We'll see you soon.
I'm Rex Baker with Gateway Rescue Mission. This world is a crazy, mixed-up place. Most of that is out of my control. But at Gateway Rescue Mission, we do what we can control right here at home in Mississippi. We offer a meal when someone is hungry, a warm bed at night, help for someone struggling with an addiction. In doing so, we try to make our little corner of the world a better place. Look us up at www.gatewaymission.org.
Hey, this is Bob, and if you're like me, you like dealing with local people. Majestic Metals was founded in Mississippi in 1954 and are headquartered right in Gluckstadt. For complete metal building systems and steel roofing and siding, call the hometown folks. Majestic Metals, 800-647-8540 or online at majesticmetalsinc.com.
The one body shop that's always believed in using OEM parts and repairing vehicles to their original factory condition is Clinton Body Shop. Auto accidents are stressful, and the last thing you need is a repair that devalues your car and makes it unsafe. In a time when more than ever insurers are pushing consumers to body shops that work for them and not you, we want to remind you Clinton Body Shop believes you deserve to have your vehicle returned to its pre-accident condition. That's why we use OEM parts and OEM repair procedures. In fact, we're trained and certified by more automakers than any body shop in Mississippi. So remember, it's your right to choose where to get your repair. So choose Clinton Body Shop in Clinton or Richland. As our founder always said, we really do take pride in perfection. Go to ClintonBodyShop.com.
TrustCare is a proud sponsor of Ole Miss Athletics. When you choose TrustCare for your urgent and primary care, you win. TrustCare clinics are staffed by friendly, experienced providers and open late. Walk in today or schedule your appointment at TrustCareHealth.com. TrustCare. Feel better, faster.
Hey, this is Bob. Just walked into ESI Supply. Patrick, man, what's going on with the hard hats?
ANSI has a new rating out, the new Type 2 hard hats, to be able to get on some job sites. And so ESI is really your hard hat headquarters.
From head protection to fall protection to cut protection to fire protection to eye protection, ESI Supply is your protection headquarters. Stop by and see them at 111 Aerosmith Drive in Richland or give them a call at 601-933-4910. That's 601-933-4910 or online at esisupply.net.
No filibuster, just everything you need to know to start your day smarter. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Talk, Mississippi.
We're back with you in the Element Well studio. So this concert series coming up in Oxford kicks off this Friday with Freedom Fest 6 at the Powerhouse. Relive the soundtrack of your college years with the Walrus, pardon me for that, the ultimate college radio rock band performing the best of The Clash, The Cure, R.E.M., NXS, The Replacements, and more. Boy, that's taking a little walk down memory lane there. On Friday, September 26th, the night before Ole Miss battles LSU, experience Oxford's ultimate Friday night throwdown with the 5-Star Funk Lounge. And then on Friday, October 31st, Halloween night, also the eve of Ole Miss versus South Carolina, it's the Molly Ringwalds. They're going to be back at the Lyric. They'll take you on a wild ride through the biggest hits of the 80s. Once again, get your tickets at OleMissConcerts.com. So Marion Greenwood on the C Spire text line says, how is it oppression when everyone has to do it? Talking about just voting. And I mentioned voting and the procedures and voter ID, something we have here in the state of Mississippi that the Democrats want to completely eliminate. And if they had their way and they had the power in the U.S. Congress, they certainly would. They set as a top priority passing a bill, essentially, turning it into law that would transfer control over elections fully to the federal government, essentially take the states out of it altogether. And, of course, That would include elimination of any sort of voter ID. It would also include universal mail-in, and that's different from just standard excuse-based mail-in in that in the couple of states that have that, they send a ballot to everybody that's on the voter rolls. I think it's Washington, Rhino, is one of those that, everybody gets a ballot. And, of course, this just dramatically increases the risk of election fraud, that these ballots floating around all over the place just end up into the hands of people who engage in voter fraud, send those ballots back in, and just cheat like heck on it, and they get counted. That's a way larger risk to the integrity of our elections than is excuse-based mail-in, where you have to actually request a ballot, and it gets returned to you. You vote, has to be notarized, has to be returned. There's a signature check and all that sort of stuff.
It's a perfect example of the left's use of bad faith arguments. If you say you want to do away with mail-in voting, they'll come back with some asinine point like, oh, well, you must not care about the military because the military uses mail-in voting, or you must not care about the elderly because the elderly use mail-in voting.
Yeah, that's not true. Any proponents I'm aware of or any discussion of elimination of this universal mass mail-out voting is
Which
different.
That's in 8 states and D.C., including California, Colorado, Hawaii, Nevada, Oregon, Utah, Vermont, and Washington State.
Okay. Some have added. It wasn't too long ago. There were 2 or 3. And I think California and Washington, and for some reason they stick out as being the first to me. They may not have been. But now it's 8 states. And so, just so you know, that if you're on the voter rolls, a ballot's getting sent to the address on the voter rolls is the way it works right now. And there are bad actors that intercept those, and they just land in the hands of those who are intentional in committing voter fraud. That's a huge risk to the integrity of elections. But the process we have here in Mississippi, where if you've got a legitimate reason that you cannot go to the polls on that day, or in one of those, of course, is that you're in the U.S. military. You're infirmed. Those are valid reasons, excuses, if you will, excuse-based absentee voting. And you can request a ballot, but you got to contact the circuit clerk of your residence, your county of residence, and a ballot gets sent to you. And you have to vote, and it has to be notarized. You have to sign it, cross the envelope, and then that is stored up. You send it back. That's stored up, tracked through the process. That's completely different than just flooding the landscape with a bunch of ballots. That's what happens in these states that have universal voting.
That's how you wind up with people moving into apartments or houses, and right around election time, all of a sudden, 40 ballots show up in their mailbox.
Exactly right.
For a 2-bedroom apartment. How could you possibly have 40 voters in a 2-bedroom apartment?
And you know what? I don't have any proof of this, but it wouldn't surprise me if people don't sell those to some people. I'll sell you these just random ballots I have here. Who knows? But to Mary's point, though, right? You're right. So it's another example, in my view, Mary, of granting some sort of preferential treatment in this case.
It's part of what W called
people.
The soft bigotry of low expectations.
Totally right. Totally right. My dad said back in the 60s and 70s to watch out for the communists. That's on the 601. Yep. And Rhino and I were talking about this a little bit on the break. Back in those days, the so-called radicals on the college campuses really were more about defending free speech. And it was more of an anti-war movement than anything else. And
how did we go from live and let live to you will use my pronouns or else?
Exactly right. That's a great way to describe it. And that's where we are now. And that, I think, goes back to these professors that we mentioned earlier that are referenced in this article from the Ole Miss Daily paper, the Daily Mississippian, that are all worried about how this anti-DEI law may affect their actions in the classroom, and how I just don't think I can teach English if I can't talk about gender ideology. That's just insane to me. law professor. I'm afraid to talk about the First, the 14th, and 15th Amendments. I would say talking about that is not only consistent with the anti-DEI law, it would be welcomed because it flies in the face of DEI. Basically, it says, hey, everybody has a right. All the rights and privileges of American citizens extend to everybody, regardless of your race, your creed, your religious beliefs, etc. That's what we believe. That's what the
but you can't expect a liberal, especially a liberal in academia, to actually argue in good faith.
Well, then they don't need to be an academician. I know I'm preaching to the choir here, and it's predictable rhetoric. But you don't deserve to be teaching malleable minds at that point, because you're all about advancing your agenda and promoting your specific agenda and trying to build legions of people that line up on your side. That's not what the college experience is supposed to be about. Man, I just want so desperately to get people who think differently to have their opportunity to get in front of these kids and then just like Charlie Kirk did. That's exactly what he did. It's why he lost his life, because that's what he did. He went out and said, there's another line of thought here. You need to think about this. And he would provoke them to think differently.
But he embarrassed academia.
That's true.
Because he didn't go to college.
So true.
And he could still debate circles around them.
And he talks about that, how he didn't go to college. He describes himself, what's the term? Autodidact, I think. Which basically means
fancy way of saying self-taught.
I'm self-taught, right. I mean, there's some, you can go look at the derivative of that and the connection of that to, I think, auto, it comes from the Greek language, which a lot of our language does flow from, just basically means, I did it myself, so to speak. Yeah, he points that out. He's proud of that. And now he's known for going on college campuses and saying all this is a waste of money, too. To a great extent, he's right. Because of how college has evolved to teaching a bunch of crap that's just worthless. And it's
sadly become communist credentialism.
That's terrible.
But I've got more letters after my name. That makes me a better person.
That's right. I'm smarter than you, right? Because I got more letters, more degrees. We need a commission to review all the approved textbooks here in Mississippi, says KC on the C Spire text line. You will see very left-leaning ideas. That's disturbing. I don't doubt you whatsoever. I think we do. I think we certainly do need to be reviewing all the content in our K through 12 schools as well. I think there's a lot of stuff that goes on we don't necessarily know about. I think there are a lot of people out there defying this law because they can do it with impunity. Nobody will rat them out, I guess, so to speak. Coming right back in the Element Wealth studio, we got some sound to play for you from the Vice President, J.D. Vance. Are you thinking about or planning for retirement? Do you have a plan? Go to myelementwealth.com or call 601-957-6006 to let Element Wealth help you find your balance between income, growth, and guarantees. The Dow anxiously awaiting Fed remarks and the Fed's actions tomorrow. It's pretty much baked in. We're going to see a 0.25 point cut in the benchmark interest rate. The Dow down 107 at this moment. The NASDAQ was also down a bit, kind of moving back and forth across the unchanged line. Yeah, it's down 6 points at this time. The the price of oil, also still hanging around that $64 today. It's up $1.32. Just kind of seems stuck between $60 and $65. Sounds like certainly appears that may be where it remains on a rather long-term basis. So not a whole lot of movement in the price of gas for you in the offing. Rhino had found some sound from J.D. Vance where he lashes out at what's going on in this country that I think is largely responsible for fomenting this assassination culture and this belief that committing acts of violence, even to the point of execution of those who don't think or speak in a way that aligns with your views, is perfectly appropriate. Here's what the vice president had to say.
Yeah, this was J.D. Vance hosting the Charlie Kirk show, which was on the air while we were on the air yesterday. But this is a clip from towards the end of the show. It's a full 2-hour show that he did. He talked to Stephen Miller. He talked to several guests about the events of the last week and the impact. But I think this minute and a half might be some of the most pertinent of what he discussed.
There is no unity with people who scream at children over their parents' politics. There is no unity with someone who lies about what Charlie Kirk said in order to excuse his murder. There is no unity with someone who harasses an innocent family the day after the father of that family lost a dear friend. There is no unity with the people who celebrate Charlie Kirk's assassination. And there is no unity with the people who fund these articles, who pay the salaries of these terrorist sympathizers, who argue that Charlie Kirk, a loving husband and father, deserved a shot to the neck because he spoke words with which they disagree. Did you know that the George Soros Open Society Foundation and the Ford Foundation, the groups who funded that disgusting article justifying Charlie's death, do you know they benefit from generous tax treatment? They are literally subsidized by you and me, the American taxpayer. And how do they reward us? By setting fire to the house built by the American family over 250 years. I am desperate for our country to be united in condemnation of the actions and the ideas that killed my friend. I want it so badly that I will tell you a difficult truth. We can only have it with people who acknowledge that political violence is unacceptable, and when we work to dismantle the institutions that promote violence and terrorism in our own country.
Well said. So true. Man, how can we unite with people who accept that acts of violence, I mean, even homicide, execution for all to see, is acceptable? I mean, that like rolls back civility hundreds of years right there.
And if you need an example of the lack of civility we're talking about, here's more audio that we didn't get around to yesterday from a truly despicable human being.
Oh, man, did you guys see that activist in America, Charlie Kirk? He got shot. Did you see that? That guy loves gun violence, and he got shot. Did you see that? Oh, man, Charlie Kirk. You know, to the Charlie Kirk family. Did you see all that blood that came out of his body? Boy, it was like,
There will be no unity with these subhuman pieces of filth.
Man, oh, man. That's just incredible. It's hard to believe that that's going on in this country, that people live among us that think like that just have zero regard for human life whatsoever. How did we get here? I mean, I have wrecked my brain trying to figure out how we got to a place where killing someone is normalized, is celebrated. These are people, when I hear that person there, my immediate reaction is, this is a loser. You talk about it all the time, who's just looking for attention. It's that dopamine effect. And this is all they know how to do to gain attention. They can't do anything productive of any value. And think about it. And the people that do, Well, they get berated by people on the left because when they do it so well, they get enriched. And we can't have that. It's unbelievable. It truly is. It's disturbing that it's going on. But there's a silver lining. You and I were talking about this. Churches are reporting their parking lots were overflowing this past weekend, that we're seeing lots of civil activists. I'm not going to call them protests. They're just activists that are pouring into the streets, and they're praying. And they're celebrating the goodness of life, and they're, of course, expressing their sadness over this heinous act we witnessed last week. But they're coming together in a respectful fashion and offering up prayer to God that He enters the hearts and minds of the evil people, not only in the country, but in the world. And we're seeing this play out across the pond in the UK, in Australia as well, pouring into the streets, calling attention to the need to revive our respect for human life and just adherence to human dignity. I don't understand why people think that their twisted radical agenda is advanced when they kill people. Where do they get to that point where, well, we just silence this person, we'll have a better chance of getting people to see things our way? So, you know what? The ideology that essentially practices that, or the system that practices that, is communism. Oh, you don't agree? You're dead. You just keep killing all the dissenters to the point where no one dissents for fear of losing their life. They still hate it. They know it sucks. And they know there's a better way of life, but they're afraid to say it because they'll get killed. That you're executed because you're a political dissident. And we've reached a point where mere thinking that gets you killed. It's unbelievable. It's so sad. And I pray for a revival as well, that we return to what made America great. And that's free speech without the fear or threat of retribution, of retaliation. There's a reason that's the First Amendment. And this professor at the law school in Oxford that says, I can't teach about the First Amendment because I might be violating the anti-DEI law, what the heck is he talking about? No. In fact, it's the First Amendment.
He seems to be educated beyond his means of understanding.
A good way to put it. The First Amendment is antithetical to DEI. Or I should say DEI is antithetical to the First Amendment. It doesn't align with the concept of free speech, DEI. No, it says, hey, if you don't agree and you want to assemble to even discuss dissenting opinion, you can't do that. You've got to be forced to accept things my way. And you've got to be, government is going to force you and prioritize you into various aspects of life. In this case, what the law addressed was hiring and admissions and enrollment. And this, you must write these you must write these DEI statements as part of your employment. Forcing. Not it occurring organically or naturally. It's a solution looking for a problem, largely, is it not? In the 1860s, even in the 1960s. Maybe not. Sure.
Because the supply of racism is nowhere near the demand for racism from the left.
That is so true. They thrive on it. They need more examples of it. It somehow they derive this twisted, distorted, unearned power from it. It's just sick. Do something productive, man. That's totally unproductive. Final segment's next.
Mississippi.
Walking through a party in the county jail. The prison band was there, they began to wail. The band was jumping and the joint began to swing. You should have heard this knocked out jailbird sing. Let it rock. Everybody let it rock. Everybody in old cell block.
Back with you, final segment from the Element Well studio. I want to pass this on before we get out of here today. And Rhino's got some sound. I think he's going to share a little short piece of it at least. But it kind of is a representation of the revival that I've been talking about. I do think that this situation has affected people in a way that was unexpected, in a positive sense. And what I'm seeing, even though we've blasted a lot of the negative and certainly called that out, but what I'm seeing is a resurgence in goodness, an overwhelming of good people and good thoughts and good actions, and a commitment to do better is honestly drowning out all the evil and the hate and the negativity. And that restores your faith in humanity and in God. But this is something closer to home, Rhino. It concerns the Monroe County School District. Someone sent me a link to a post that the school district made. And it was an anti-school choice post. You kind of had to read the entire post to get to it, but two things. One, it says that the legislature may call or the governor may call a special session, bring the legislature in before the session begins in January to discuss school choice and debate it and pass legislation. That would be certainly the goal of a special session. But that such a measure would include, it depends on which side you're on, sweeteners or poison pills, teacher pay raise, and some adjustments to the PERS Tier 5 that was introduced last year, so that if you voted against school choice, you'd be voting against the teacher pay raise and these adjustments that so many, and certainly in the PERS program, want to see happen to this Tier 5 that was introduced and passed into law last year. But the other thing, they once again criticize school choice on the basis of the local portion of funding not following the student when they elect to transfer from one public school to another. That the local portion, as we've explained, stays with the school associated with their residents. But they fail to mention that the legislation that was introduced last year, passed in the House by Representative Jansen Owen, was on here Friday discussing it, included some funding for those schools that felt like, okay, we need more to make up for, more money from the state to make up for the local funding we're not receiving, because that stays with the school that is at the address of the student. So once again, misrepresentation of fact on this issue. Guess what? The post magically disappeared. I didn't say anything, by the way, and I didn't comment. I was shared by a friend. If we got time, play the sound.
You know, I don't come from any kind of money, and I've never owned a suit before. My wife, she bought me this suit. Our anniversary's coming up, and we have a nice anniversary plan. You know, we make a little bit of money now, and I'm proud to say that because that's certainly not where either one of us comes from. And I feel good in this suit, man. And I just want my wife to know she made me feel good. It's a $300 suit. I ain't never had nothing like this before in my life. And I tell you what, okay, video flip here, so I'm going to lose some of you. I didn't know Charlie Kirk, never met that guy before in my life. And something else that I've never done before in my life is believe in God. I'm going to wear this suit to church. I'm going to go to church. I'm going to try to be a better father, husband, and leader for my family. They deserve that.
That is so awesome. I'm so glad you found that, shared that with me, shared that with our audience. I do think that he is one of what could be millions of examples, honestly, of people that are starting to find a little introspection. It's amazing how an event like that can do that. It's sad that it had to occur. And I would say that Charlie's in heaven looking down, and he's pleased at what he's seeing there, knowing that he had that kind of impact. And I just wanted to say to this young man, I don't know his name, I don't think it's mentioned in there, you do look good. I just want to say that. You look great, and God bless you. And with that, we're out of here today, folks. We thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back with you again tomorrow in the Element Well studio. Until then, stay safe, and as always, God bless.
SuperTalk Mississippi Media Production.